Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Like Christ. Welcome back to our 5-minute Bible study series. If you don't know, we do a Bible study every single day going through one chapter of the Bible, and the goal is to finish the whole Bible. Lord willing, we'll do that and create PDFs like the one you're seeing on the screen for each chapter with all the key information. And you can download that on our website for free. There's also some physical books available if you'd rather have them in a book that you can hold. When did the events of 1 Chronicles chapter 14 happen? If you're following along in the study, you're probably sick of hearing this, and because our when section doesn't really change a whole lot. Hopefully you'll be able to repeat this verbatim if anyone ever asks you when 1 Chronicles, or what period of time 1 Chronicles documents. But 1 Chronicles was written several hundred years after the reign of David, but it primarily records the life and the reign of David as king over all Israel and Judah. We've got a couple key characters to talk about. First, we have David, the second king of Israel. We have Hiram. Hiram was also a king, but he was the king of Tyre. This was a city to the north of Israel along the Mediterranean coast. And then the Philistines. Yes, the Philistines, the longtime enemies of Israel. They were a thorn in Israel's side ever since Israel failed to drive them out of the promised land during the days of Joshua. Taking a look at the map, we just mentioned Tyre, where Hiram was king. That's way up to the north, almost to the top of the map, one of the most northern locations. It is on the Mediterranean Sea coast, to the west of the city of Dan. David's house was in his capital city, which was in Jerusalem. And then the Valley of Rephaim is going to be mentioned in this chapter, is approximately 8 kilometers or 5 miles west of Jerusalem. I don't have that exactly marked on the map, but just know it's pretty close to Jerusalem. There are 17 verses in chapter 14, and the first 7 are about David's growing family and his house. So Hiram, the king of Tyre, sent cedar trees, carpenters, and masons to build David a house in Jerusalem. We're also told that David took several more wives, and he had several more children while he was living in Jerusalem, and a list of his children is included in verses 4 through 7. Our second section in this chapter, verses 8 through 17, has a direct parallel, almost word for word, in 2 Samuel chapter 5, and so the notes also parallel one another, and I believe our application parallels the application in that chapter. So let's talk about this. David defeats the Philistines at the Valley of Rephaim, verses 8 through 17. When the Philistines found out that the Israelites had made David their king, they went looking for David. But David took refuge in a stronghold, according to 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 17. The Philistine army gathered themselves just to the west of Jerusalem at the Valley of Rephaim. And David asked the Lord if he should attack the Philistine army, to which the Lord responded affirmatively. He said, yes, you should attack them. David's men attacked them, defeated them, and took possession of their idols, and then they then ordered those idols to be burned. Later on, the Philistines decided to try again. They returned to the Valley of Rephaim for a raid. And again, David went to the Lord and he asked him if he should attack. God told him not to attack directly, but to approach the Philistines from the rear, and then they were supposed to attack when they heard, quote, the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees. Well, David obeyed the Lord's instructions, and God gave him another victory. After these battles, we're told, quote, the fame of David went into all the lands, and the Lord brought the fear of him upon all the nations. So we see the expanding influence of the kingdom of Israel, which will really be at its largest during the time of David and then his son Solomon. That brings us to our application. Just because you're capable of doing something doesn't necessarily mean God wants you to do it. You should always seek God's guidance before undertaking any task. David's military was growing stronger and stronger by the day. The Philistines were growing weaker and weaker. They were becoming less and less of a threat to Israel's power every day. But David still went to God before the battle to ask God if he should engage at all. You may have the physical strength or the mental capacity or the financial means to undertake some kind of work or to steer your life in a certain direction. But having ability to do something doesn't equate to good decision making. We need to go to God and ask him for guidance, even if we are fully capable of going in a particular direction. We tend to lean into God's guidance when we feel like we lack the means to be successful at a task. We need to remember to lean into God's guidance just as much when we grow strong. To fail to do so will ultimately result in us falling into the pit of pride. And we know what God thinks of pride. He's ultimately going to bring down those who are proud. So no matter how capable you are, never engage in something without asking God first.